Iran has 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. That's close enough to weapons grade that Tehran could produce fissile material for 10 nuclear bombs in a matter of weeks if it decided to cross that line. Israel knows this. The rest of the Middle East knows this. Everyone's betting their cities on a handful of interceptor missiles designed to hit bullets with bullets at the edge of space. This is every defense system Israel operates to stop an Iranian nuclear strike. Let's be clear about what we're talking about. Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Yet. What it has is the industrial infrastructure to make them fast. A ballistic missile arsenal capable of reaching Israel from 1,500 kilometers away. And Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei reportedly authorizing the development of miniaturized nuclear warheads for those missiles in October 2025. The nightmare scenario keeps Israeli defense planners awake at night. Iran loads a 500-kilogram warhead containing weapons-grade uranium onto a Khaybar Shekin or Emad missile. The missile launches from western Iran. Flight time to Tel Aviv: 12 minutes. Israel's multi-tiered defense network gets maybe 3 chances to intercept it before the warhead detonates over the most densely populated area in the Middle East. Iran's ballistic missile inventory is the largest in the region. Before the 1-2-day war with Israel in June 2025, U.S. Central Command estimated Iran possessed over 3,000 ballistic missiles. That war cost Iran roughly half its arsenal and damaged key production facilities. By the end of 2000, Israeli intelligence assessed Iran had rebuilt to approximately 1,500 missiles and 200 mobile launchers. Reports from February 2026 suggest Iran is racing to restore its stockpile to 2,000 missiles, while simultaneously working to recover the 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium buried under the rubble of bombed nuclear facilities at Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. The missiles that concern Israel most aren't the short-range Qassams Hamas fires from Gaza. They're medium-range ballistic missiles designed specifically to deliver heavy payloads across the 1,500 kilometers separating Tehran from Tel Aviv. Iran operates several families of these weapons, and they all share one characteristic: they were built with Israel in mind. The Shahab 3 family forms the backbone. These are liquid-fueled medium-range ballistic missiles derived from North Korean Nodong technology, with ranges between 1,300 and 2,000 kilometers. The Shahab 3B and its upgraded variants like the Ghadar can carry warheads weighing 700 to 1,000 kilograms, more than enough to accommodate a nuclear device. They're old, relatively inaccurate, with a circular error probable of about 2,500 meters. But that doesn't matter if you're carrying a nuke. Close counts and horseshoes, and nuclear warfare. The Emad is where things get nastier. Unveiled in 2015, it's a modified Ghadar with a maneuverable ballistic arc. The Emad can adjust its course during the terminal phase, making interception significantly harder. It has a range of roughly 1,700 kilometers and uses liquid fuel, meaning it requires preparation time before launch. But once it's airborne, tracking its final destination becomes a guessing game. The Khaybar Shekin represents Iran's shift to solid fuel. Revealed in 2202 and named after a 7th century battle, this missile has a 450-kilometer range and eliminates the complex pre-launch fueling that makes liquid fuel missiles vulnerable to preemption. Its 500-kilogram warhead features independent maneuvering capabilities. Upon atmospheric re-entry, it decelerates and employs fins to evade interceptors. Israeli and American Patriot systems struggle with targets that refuse to fly predictably. The Sejil is Iran's domestic answer to wanting missiles that can be fired on short notice. It's a 2-stage solid-fueled medium-range ballistic missile with a 2,000-kilometer range. Iran is the only country to have developed solid-fuel missiles of this range without first developing nuclear weapons, which tells you exactly what Tehran had in mind when designing it. Then there's the Fatah family. Iran builds these as hypersonic missiles capable of Mach 13 speeds, with ranges between 1,400 and 1,500 kilometers. The Fatah one uses a large solid rocket booster derived from the Khaybar Shekin design, plus a small solid rocket motor inside the re-entry vehicle for terminal maneuvering. Western analysts are skeptical about the hypersonic label. This isn't a hypersonic glide vehicle like Russia's Avangard, or a scramjet-powered cruise missile. It's a ballistic missile with a powered maneuverable re-entry vehicle. But semantics aside, it's another headache for missile defense systems because it can change direction during the phase when interceptors are trying to predict impact points. During Iran's direct attacks on Israel in April and October 2024, Tehran fired hundreds of these missiles. The attacks were intercepted with reported success rates around 85%, but that still meant 1 or 5% got through. In the 1-2-day war of June 2025, Iran launched approximately 550 ballistic missiles and over 1,000 drones. Most were intercepted, but 28 Israelis died and infrastructure took hits. The calculus changes entirely when you're talking about nuclear payloads. Even a 90% interception rate means 1 warhead in 10 reaches its target. If that 1 warhead is nuclear, you don't get a second chance. Israel's defense strategy accepts one fundamental reality. you cannot intercept every missile. The goal is to intercept enough that catastrophic damage is prevented, critical infrastructure survives, and the nation can retaliate. What you're about to see is a multi-layered defense architecture designed around that brutal math. Let's start at the bottom tier, because even though Iron Dome won't stop a nuclear-tipped ballistic missile from Iran, it's the most famous piece of Israel's defensive arsenal, and it handles everything else. Iron Dome is a mobile, all-weather air defense system designed to intercept rockets, artillery shells, and mortars fired from distances of 4 to 70 kilometers away. It became operational in March 2011, and since then it has intercepted thousands of rockets fired from Gaza and Lebanon. The system was developed by Rafael Advanced Defense Systems with substantial U.S. funding, roughly $3 billion from 2011 to 2001, with another billion approved in 2022. Each Iron Dome battery consists of 3 to 4 launchers, with each launcher holding up to 20 Tamir interceptor missiles. A battery can defend approximately 60 square miles of territory. Israel operates at least 10 batteries positioned strategically around cities and critical infrastructure. The entire setup is mobile. Batteries can be relocated in a few hours depending on where threats emerge. The system works through 3 integrated components. First, detection radar identifies and tracks incoming projectiles immediately after launch. Second, a battle management and control center calculates the rocket's trajectory and determines whether it will hit a populated area or land harmlessly in open desert. If the system determines the rocket poses no threat, it does nothing, saving expensive interceptors for rockets that actually matter. Third, if the trajectory indicates the rocket will strike a population center or strategic site, the system launches a Tamir interceptor to destroy it mid-flight. Tamir missiles are 3 meters long, weigh 90 kilograms, and cost an estimated $40,000 to $100,000 each, depending on whose numbers you believe. They reach speeds around Mach 2 and use electro-optical sensors plus steering fins to guide themselves to targets. The warhead contains 11 kilograms of high explosives designed to detonate in proximity to the threat, shredding it with fragmentation. Iron Dome's reported success rate is 85 to 90% against rockets it engages. That sounds impressive until you remember the system is selective. It only fires at threats headed for protected areas. Rockets landing in empty fields are ignored. The 900% figure also comes from Israeli military sources. And there's an obvious incentive to inflate the numbers. Independent analysis during the May 2021 conflict suggested the real interception rate might be closer to 80%, which is still remarkable, but leaves 1 in 5 rockets getting through. The system has weaknesses. It's vulnerable to saturation attacks. Fire enough rockets simultaneously from multiple directions, and you overwhelm the batteries. Hamas tried this during the October 2230 attacks, launching over 5,000 rockets in the opening salvo. Many interceptors were expended, and a significant number of Hamas rockets penetrated Israeli defenses simply because there weren't enough Tamir missiles to engage everything at once. Each Tamir costs around $50,000. The economic asymmetry means a determined adversary with deep stockpiles can bleed the defense dry. Iron Dome also doesn't handle high-altitude or long-range threats. Ballistic missiles from Iran fly faster, higher, and on steeper trajectories than anything Hamas or Hezbollah fires from short range. Iron Dome's maximum engagement altitude is about 15 kilometers, and its range caps at 70 kilometers. Iranian ballistic missiles re-enter the atmosphere at velocities exceeding Mach 5 from altitudes above 50 kilometers. Iron Dome wasn't built for that fight. There's also Sea Dome, the naval variant deployed on Israel's SAR-6 class corvettes, which provides ship-based defense against coastal threats. And there's Iron Beam, a high-energy laser system that became operational in late 2025. Iron Beam can shoot down drones, mortars, and short-range rockets at a range of about 10 kilometers for a cost of roughly $2 per shot, compared to $50,000 for a Tamir. It's an economic game-changer for defending against cheap munitions, but it's not designed for ballistic missiles and won't play a role in stopping an Iranian nuclear strike. So Iron Dome anchors the bottom of Israel's defense architecture. It's exceptional at what it does, stopping artillery, rockets, and mortars that threaten cities and military bases. But when you're talking about Iranian ballistic missiles delivering nuclear warheads, you need something built for higher, faster, and farther. David's sling fills the gap between Iron Dome's short-range coverage and the Aero System's long-range ballistic missile defense. It's designed to intercept medium to long-range rockets, short-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, aircraft, and drones at ranges between 40 and 300 kilometers, and altitudes up to 15 kilometers. Developed jointly by Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and Raytheon, David's sling became operational in April 2017. The U.S. provided nearly $2 billion in development and procurement funding between 2006 and 2020. 50% of the system's components are built in the United States, which was a condition for securing American funding and political support. Each David sling battery includes a vertical missile firing unit, an ELM-284 fire control radar, a battle management center called the Golden Almond, and stunner interceptor missiles. The ELM 2084 radar can detect and track targets at ranges up to 250, 300 kilometers. It rotates at 30 rotations per minute to provide 360-degree surveillance, and can track up to 200 targets simultaneously in fire control mode. The Stunner interceptor is where David's sling gets interesting. It's a two-stage, 4.6-meter dash-long missile that reaches speeds up to Mach 7.5. Unlike systems that rely on proximity-fused explosive warheads, the Stunner uses hit-to-kill technology. It physically rams the target at hypersonic velocity, destroying it through sheer kinetic energy. The missile carries both an onboard radar seeker and electro-optical/infrared sensors for terminal guidance, allowing it to distinguish between decoys and actual warheads. The system was originally designed to counter threats like Hezbollah's Fajr, 5 rockets, Syrian M600 missiles, and Iranian-supplied weapons with ranges between 70 and 250 kilometers. But operational experience during the 1-2-day war with Iran in June 2025 proved David's sling could engage longer-range ballistic missiles as well. Israeli defense sources confirmed the system successfully intercepted several missiles launched from 1,500 kilometers away, well beyond its advertised design parameters. This matters because David's sling interceptors cost an estimated $1 million each, compared to $2.50 to $3.5 million for Arrow 3 interceptors. If David's sling can handle some of the ballistic missile threats that would normally require Arrow, it eases the burden on the upper-tier systems and preserves the more expensive interceptors for the hardest targets. In February 2026, Israel completed a series of upgraded tests for David's sling, based on operational lessons learned from the June War. The tests included challenging scenarios designed to validate the system's expanded capabilities against evolving threats. The upgrades reportedly improved the system's ability to intercept ballistic missiles launched directly from Iran, further blurring the line between mid-tier and upper-tier defense. David's sling first saw combat in July 2018 when it engaged 2 Syrian Tochka short-range ballistic missiles that Israeli authorities initially feared were headed for Israeli territory. The missiles landed inside Syria, but Israel launched 2 Stunner interceptors anyway, one of which detonated over Israeli airspace. In May 2023, the system intercepted Hamas rockets aimed at Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. In October 2024, David's sling was used during Iranian strikes. In June 2025, it shot down a ballistic missile for the first time during the Iran-Israel war. The system has demonstrated it can handle saturation attacks to some degree. It's designed to intercept salvos of multiple threats within rapid succession. But like Iron Dome, it's not invulnerable. Enough missiles fired simultaneously will overwhelm any defense, and David's sling batteries are finite. Israel operates a limited number of batteries, and each battery has a limited magazine depth. Once the interceptors are expended, reloading takes time. There's also the question of how well David's sling performs against maneuvering reentry vehicles like those on the Emad and Kebar Shekin. Hit-to-kill interception requires precise prediction of the target's flight path. If the target starts dodging during terminal phase, the interceptor has to adjust on the fly. The Stunner's onboard sensors and thrust vector control give it maneuvering capability, but there's a limit to how much evasion it can compensate for. Iranian missile designers know this, which is why they're investing in maneuverable reentry vehicles. David's sling also doesn't operate in isolation. It's fully integrated with Israel's broader air defense network, including Iron Dome, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, and even U.S. systems like THAAD and Aegis destroyers. The entire architecture shares radar data, tracks, and fire control information to avoid redundant engagements and optimize intercept opportunities. When an Iranian missile is detected, the system calculates which interceptor has the best probability of kill and assigns the engagement accordingly. So David's sling provides the critical middle layer. It's fast, it's accurate, and recent upgrades have extended its reach into the lower end of long-range ballistic missile defense. But when you're talking about Iranian missiles re-entering the atmosphere at Mach 10 plus, from altitudes above 100 kilometers, you need something designed for exo-atmospheric interception. Arrow 2 is Israel's first dedicated anti-ballistic missile system, designed to intercept medium and long-range ballistic missiles during their terminal phase as they dive toward targets in the upper atmosphere. It became operational in October 2000, has been continuously upgraded since. Developed by Israel Aerospace Industries, with U.S. Missile Defense Agency support, Arrow 2 uses a 2-stage solid-fuel rocket to reach altitudes up to 50 kilometers and engage targets at ranges up to 90 kilometers. Unlike the hit-to-kill approach used by David's sling and Arrow 3, Arrow 2 employs a fragmentation warhead. The interceptor gets close to the incoming ballistic missile and detonates, shredding the threat with high-velocity fragments. The reason for the fragmentation warhead is simple. Intercepting a ballistic missile in the terminal phase is extremely difficult. The target is moving at Mach 10 or faster, descending at a steep angle, and you have seconds to react. Hit-to-kill requires pinpoint accuracy. A proximity-fused fragmentation warhead gives you a slightly larger margin for error. You don't need a direct impact, just close enough to destroy or disable the warhead. Arrow 2 is guided by the Super Green Pine radar, a phased array system capable of detecting and tracking ballistic missile launches at ranges exceeding 500 kilometers. The radar provides fire control data to the Citron Tree Battle Management Center, which calculates intercept solutions and launches Arrow 2 interceptors from mobile vertical launchers. Each launcher holds 6 interceptors. The system has seen combat multiple times. In October 2023, an Arrow 2 missile intercepted a long-range ballistic missile launched by Houthi forces in Yemen, targeting Israel, the first operational intercept of a ground-to-ground ballistic missile by the system. Since the interception occurred outside Earth's atmosphere, technically handled by Arrow 3 in that case, it marked the first instance of what some analysts called space warfare. Arrow 2 continued to engage ballistic threats during the April and October 2024 Iranian attacks, and throughout the June 2025 war. Arrow 2's strength is that it provides a redundant layer of defense for threats that leak through Arrow 3 or David's sling. If a missile isn't intercepted exoatmospherically by Arrow 3, Arrow 2 gets a chance during the terminal descent. This layered approach increases overall system effectiveness because you're giving yourself multiple shots at the same target. The weakness is that Arrow 2 engages threats relatively late in their flight profile, during the final descent, when the warhead is seconds from impact. Intercepting a nuclear warhead at this stage is risky. Even if the fragmentation warhead successfully destroys the incoming missile's reentry vehicle, there's a possibility of dispersing radioactive material over Israeli territory if the nuclear warhead is damaged but not fully neutralized. It's better than a ground detonation, but it's not ideal. Arrow 2 also struggles against maneuvering reentry vehicles. If the target starts making unpredictable course corrections during terminal phase, predicting the intercept point becomes exponentially harder. The system relies on ballistic trajectory modeling. If the missile doesn't behave ballistically, the models fall apart. There's also the issue of decoys and countermeasures. Sophisticated ballistic missiles can deploy chaff, radar reflectors, or lightweight decoys during reentry to confuse defense systems. Arrow 2's radar and fire control have been upgraded over the years to improve discrimination, but it's an ongoing cat-and-mouse game. Iranian missile designers study Israeli defenses just as closely as Israeli engineers study Iranian missiles. From 1989 to 2007, the US and Israel invested roughly $2.4 billion in the Arrow program, with 50 to 80% funded by the United States. Arrow 2 interceptors are estimated to cost around $2 to $3 million each, significantly more expensive than David's Sling Stunner, but cheaper than Arrow 3. Israel operates multiple Arrow 2 batteries positioned to defend high-value targets, but exact deployment numbers are classified. Arrow 2 represents the last line of defense within the atmosphere. If a ballistic missile makes it through Arrow 3 and David's Sling, Arrow 2 is the final attempt to destroy it before impact. But the real heavy lifting, the interceptions that happen so high and so early that follow-up isn't even a consideration, belongs to the system that operates at the edge of space. Arrow 3 is Israel's crown jewel. It's an exoatmospheric anti-ballistic missile system, designed to intercept long-range ballistic missiles during the mid-course phase of their flight, when they're coasting through space above the atmosphere at altitudes exceeding 100 kilometers. It became operational in January 2017 and represents one of the most advanced missile defense systems ever deployed. Co-developed by Israel Aerospace Industries and Boeing with U.S. Missile Defense Agency funding, Arrow 3 uses a two-stage solid-fuel booster to launch a kinetic kill vehicle into space. The kill vehicle separates from the booster, uses its own thrust vector control for maneuvering, and hunts the target using a combination of radar and electro-optical sensors. It doesn't carry a warhead. It destroys the threat through direct impact at closing velocities that make the kinetic energy catastrophic. Arrow 3's estimated range is up to 2,400 kilometers, and it can reach altitudes above 100 kilometers. This gives Israel the ability to intercept Iranian ballistic missiles while they're still in the mid-course phase, long before they re-enter the atmosphere and head for Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. Intercepting a missile in space has two massive advantages. First, you have more time to calculate and execute the intercept. Second, if you're destroying a nuclear warhead, the detonation or dispersal happens in space where it can't harm anyone on the ground. The system has demonstrated a claimed intercept success rate of around 99% in tests, though real-world combat conditions are always messier than controlled test scenarios. During the April 2024 Iranian attack, Arrow 3 intercepted multiple ballistic missiles. During the 1-2-day war in June 2025, the system was pushed harder than ever before. Iran fired approximately 550 ballistic missiles, and Arrow 3 batteries worked alongside David's Sling, Arrow 2, and the U.S. THAAD system to achieve reported intercept rates around 85 to 86%. In November 2003, Arrow 3 achieved its first operational intercept, targeting a missile launched by Houthi forces from Yemen toward the Red Sea area. In April 2024, the system intercepted Iranian ballistic missiles as part of a coordinated defense involving Israel, the U.S., the UK, and France during Operation True Promise. In June 2025, during Operation Rising Lion, Arrow 3 intercepted 86% of ballistic missiles launched from Iran. Arrow 3's ability to intercept salvos is critical. The system can engage more than 5 ballistic missiles within a 30-second window. It can also be launched into an area of space before the exact target missile destination is known, essentially positioning the kill vehicle in a zone where multiple potential threats might pass through, then adjusting course once the actual target is identified. This reduces reaction time and increases the probability of successful engagement. Each Arrow 3 battery includes a launcher with 6 interceptor tubes, the Super Green Pine, or in /TPY, 2 radar for early warning and tracking, and the Citron Tree Battle Management Center. The system is fully mobile. Batteries can be repositioned based on threat assessment. Israel operates an undisclosed number of Arrow 3 batteries. Their defense sources indicate production has ramped up significantly. Production rates tripled after the June 2000-2005 war to meet operational demand and fulfill export contracts to Germany. Speaking of Germany, Arrow 3 became Israel's largest defense export deal in history, when Germany purchased the system for approximately $3.5 billion in 2000-2003, with an additional $3.1 billion expansion approved in late 2025, bringing total German investment to roughly $6.5 billion. Finland also signed a contract in 2023 for €316 million. Germany activated its first Arrow 3 elements at Holsdorf Air Base in December 2025 as part of the European Sky Shield Initiative to counter Russian ballistic missile threats. This makes Arrow 3 the first Israeli-developed anti-ballistic missile system to be adopted by NATO members. Arrow 3 interceptors are estimated to cost between $2 million and $4 million each, depending on production batch and configuration, with recent procurements reflecting figures around $3 to $3.5 million. A complete battery, including launchers, radars, and command systems, costs approximately $170 million. The United States has provided nearly $1.2 billion in aid for Arrow 3 development and procurement from 2008 to 2019, and nearly $3.8 billion toward the entire Arrow weapon system. The system's effectiveness against maneuvering re-entry vehicles and advanced threats is constantly being tested. Iranian missiles like the Khaybar Shekin and Ahmad use maneuvering re-entry vehicles designed specifically to evade systems like Arrow 3. The kill vehicle's electro-optical sensors and onboard guidance are designed to track and adjust to evasive maneuvers. But there are limits. If an incoming warhead makes aggressive, unpredictable course changes during the terminal phase after re-entry, even Arrow 3 will struggle. There's also the reality that no missile defense system is hermetic. During the June 2025 war, Arrow 3 and the broader Israeli air defense network intercepted 85 to 86% of the roughly 550 ballistic missiles Iran launched. That's an impressive interception rate by any measure. But 14 to 15% still got through. 28 Israelis were killed, and infrastructure suffered damage. If even one of those missiles had been carrying a nuclear warhead instead of a conventional explosive, the casualty count would be measured in tens of thousands. Arrow 3's vulnerabilities include the finite magazine depth. Each battery has a limited number of interceptors, and once they're expended, reloading takes time. During sustained missile barrages, batteries can be depleted faster than they can be resupplied. Iran knows this, which is why saturation attacks remain a core element of its strategic doctrine. Fire enough missiles even if most are intercepted, and you increase the odds that a critical payload gets through. Arrow 3 also relies on early warning radar to detect launches and calculate intercept trajectories. If the radar is jammed, spoofed, or destroyed, the system's effectiveness degrades. Iranian electronic warfare capabilities have improved, and there are reports of efforts to develop decoys and countermeasures specifically designed to confuse Israeli missile defenses. Despite these challenges, Arrow 3 remains the backbone of Israel's ability to defend against Iranian ballistic missiles. It's the system that provides the earliest and highest altitude intercept opportunities, and it's the only layer of defense that can reliably engage threats in the exo-atmospheric mid-course phase. When you're talking about stopping a nuclear strike, Arrow 3 is the primary line of defense. Israel doesn't fight alone. When tensions with Iran escalated in 2024 and 2025, the United States deployed additional missile defense assets to the region to augment Israeli capabilities. The Terminal High Altitude Area Defense (THAAD) system arrived in Israel in October 2024, following Iranian ballistic missile strikes. THAAD is a U.S. Army mobile air defense system designed to intercept ballistic missiles in their terminal phase using hit-to-kill technology at altitudes of 40 to 150 kilometers and ranges of 150 to 200 kilometers. It sits between Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 in terms of operational envelope. THAAD's and /TPY 2 radar provides long-range detection and tracking, and the system uses kinetic kill vehicles similar in concept to Arrow 3. Each launcher holds 8 interceptors. The deployment of THAAD in Israel was intended to add additional capacity to Israel's layered defenses, particularly against the ballistic missile threat from Iran. During the June 2025 war, THAAD interceptors worked alongside Israeli systems to engage Iranian missiles. The U.S. Navy's Aegis-equipped destroyers also play a role. Aegis destroyers stationed in the eastern Mediterranean use the AN/SESPY 1 radar and SM-3 interceptors to provide exoatmospheric ballistic missile defense. SM-3 Block IIA interceptors can engage targets at altitudes exceeding 500 kilometers and ranges over 2,500 kilometers. During the April and October 2024 Iranian attacks and the June 2025 war, Aegis destroyers engaged Iranian ballistic missiles, adding another layer of defense and extending Israel's defensive umbrella beyond its territorial borders. The integration of US and Israeli systems is seamless from a technical standpoint. Data links allow radars and fire control centers to share tracks in real time, optimizing engagement decisions across the entire network. When an Iranian missile launches, Israeli Green Pine radars, US, and /TPY, 2 radars on THAAD, and Aegis SPY, 1 radars all detect it simultaneously. The combined data is fused, a fire solution is calculated, and the optimal interceptor, whether Arrow 3, THAAD, or SM-3, is selected based on geometry, inventory, and probability of kill. This combined defense architecture significantly increases the odds of successful intercepts. But it also creates dependencies. If the US decides to withdraw THAAD or redeploy Aegis destroyers elsewhere, Israel loses that additional capacity. And while the systems are integrated, they're not unlimited. THAAD has finite interceptor stocks, Aegis destroyers carry a limited number of SM-3s, and both rely on early warning to be effective. None of these interceptor systems work without early warning. You can't shoot down a missile if you don't know it's been launched. Israel operates a network of ground-based and airborne radars designed to detect ballistic missile launches from Iran the moment they leave the ground. The Super Green Pine radar is the backbone. It's an S-band phased array radar capable of detecting ballistic missile launches at ranges exceeding 500 kilometers and tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Upgraded variants can track targets at even greater distances and discriminate between warheads and decoys. Israel also integrates data from US early warning satellites and ground-based radars. When an Iranian missile launches, US Space Force infrared satellites detect the plume and transmit data to command centers within seconds. This provides Israel with precious additional warning time, sometimes as much as 30 to 60 seconds earlier than ground-based radar alone. Airborne early warning aircraft, like the Gulfstream G550-based ITAM, provide additional radar coverage and can detect low-flying cruise missiles or drones that ground-based radars might miss due to terrain masking. The integration of space-based, ground-based, airborne, and sea-based sensors creates a fused picture that maximizes detection range and minimizes blind spots. But early warning has limits. A missile launched from western Iran targeting Tel Aviv has a flight time of roughly 12 minutes. Of that, the boost phase, when the missile is climbing and most visible, lasts maybe 2 to 3 minutes. The mid-course phase, when it's coasting through space, lasts another 6 to 7 minutes. The terminal phase, when it re-enters the atmosphere and dives toward the target, is maybe 1 to 2 minutes. That means from detection to impact, Israel has 12 minutes to detect the launch, calculate the trajectory, determine the target, assign interceptors, launch those interceptors, guide them to the threat, and execute the kill. 12 minutes. For a nuclear strike, there is no second chance. You get it right the first time, or Tel Aviv ceases to exist. So can Israel actually stop a nuclear strike? The honest answer, probably, but not certainly. If Iran launches a single ballistic missile carrying a nuclear warhead, Israel's layered defense network has multiple opportunities to intercept it. Arrow 3 engages during the mid-course phase in space. If Arrow 3 misses, David's Sling or THAAD engage during late mid-course or early terminal phase. If those miss, Arrow 2 gets a final shot during terminal descent. The probability of at least one successful intercept across those layers is high, likely above 90% based on demonstrated performance. But 90% isn't 100%, and the consequences of that remaining 10% are apocalyptic. A single nuclear warhead detonating over Tel Aviv would kill hundreds of thousands instantly and render the city uninhabitable for decades. There is no margin for error. The scenario gets significantly worse if Iran launches multiple missiles. Israel's interception rates drop as the volume of threats increases. During the June 2025 war, Israel intercepted 85 to 86% of 550 conventional ballistic missiles. If Iran launched 50 missiles and even one carried a nuclear warhead, those odds become a nightmare. Israel would need to intercept all 50 to ensure the nuclear payload doesn't get through, or correctly identify which missile carries the nuclear warhead, and prioritize that specific intercept. Iranian strategy accounts for this. Reports indicate Iran is rebuilding its missile arsenal with the explicit goal of reaching 2,000 ballistic missiles, knowing that mass saturation attacks overwhelm defenses. Fire enough missiles, mix conventional and potentially nuclear payloads, and the statistical probability that one gets through starts climbing. There's also the question of maneuvering re-entry vehicles, decoys, and electronic warfare. Iranian missiles like the Khaybar Shekan and Emad are specifically designed to evade missile defenses through terminal phase maneuvering. If a nuclear-armed missile makes aggressive evasive maneuvers during re-entry, even the best interceptors will struggle to hit it. And if Iran deploys radar jammers or spoofing systems to degrade Israeli early warning, detection and tracking become compromised, reducing intercept probabilities. Israel's production capacity is another bottleneck. Arrow 3 interceptor production has tripled since the June 2025 war, but manufacturing sophisticated exo-atmospheric kill vehicles takes time. If Iran conducts sustained missile campaigns, Israel could deplete its interceptor stocks faster than they can be replaced. The US can provide additional THAAD interceptors and SM-3s, but those aren't unlimited either. And then there's the strategic calculation. Iran knows it doesn't need a 100% success rate. It just needs one nuclear warhead to penetrate Israeli defenses. That single success would be catastrophic enough to justify the expenditure of dozens or hundreds of conventional missiles as cover. The attacker needs to succeed every single time. So can Israel stop an Iranian nuclear strike? In a scenario involving a limited number of missiles, the answer is yes, probably. The multi-layered defense network, reinforced by US systems and integrated early warning, provides a robust capability to intercept ballistic threats, but absolute certainty doesn't exist. And in a saturation attack involving scores of missiles, with maneuvering re-entry vehicles and sophisticated countermeasures, the odds shift. Some missiles will get through. If one of those missiles is carrying a nuclear payload, the consequences are unthinkable. The Israeli defense establishment understands this, which is why its strategic doctrine emphasizes preemption and deterrence over purely defensive measures. The best way to stop an Iranian nuclear strike is to prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons in the first place, through sabotage, airstrikes on nuclear facilities, or the credible threat of overwhelming retaliation. Missile defense is the last line of defense, not the first. Which brings us to the ultimate question this entire architecture is designed to answer. Can technology save you when the enemy is willing to destroy themselves? To destroy you, Israel is betting its survival on the answer being yes. Time will tell if that bet pays off.